In this video, we're going to talk about the proposed possible future incoming car tax changes, which would be based on weight rather than what it is now, which is emissions based. And I'm going to be coming from it kind of at an angle of how it affects me in this old super high mileage L322 Range Rover, but it is the kind of thing that it's going to affect everyone, and there are a lot of similar cars, especially when you take weight into account. But it looks like sometime in the future they are going to be moving the goalposts again. Obviously road tax came in because people built roads for people to get around, and then suddenly people thought, oh hang on, how are we going to keep these roads maintained? So kings or landowners or something charge road tax for the people who are going to use it. Eventually though it changed to emissions, so they decided to reward people who drove cars that were good for the environment, which included diesel cars and EVs, because a lot of diesel cars and obviously EVs don't give many grams of CO2 for every kilometre that they drive. So we bought an EV thinking, great, we don't have to pay any car tax, and we have a diesel car that had a DPF, which is really annoying, thinking, hey, our emissions are low as well, so over our two cars we've got to pay hardly any car tax. Awesome. So the government's like, oh no, we've convinced everyone to buy these cars that don't pay car tax, and now they're getting them, and we're going to ban all the cars that do pay car tax. We need to change it. Oh, I feel so silly. I feel like someone who never became an expert at anything, and now I'll get to run the country. I swear politicians are just like the original influences. So this year they changed it, and we've got to pay £195, whether it's an EV car or a big massive car or whatever. You've got to pay at least £195. Well, okay, that's not too bad. In the grand scheme of things, Europe is way more expensive. I can live with it. But despite having a blooming annoying DPF and having to put AdBlue in a diesel car to keep emissions down, we've now got to pay an extra 195 quid for our troubles. So now the government, they've remembered the car tax originally was about repairing the roads, and they obviously haven't been repairing the roads, as I witnessed on my trip to Wales. Why is it that Welsh roads are really nice and English roads are just terrible? As soon as you get back to England, terrible roads. So maybe they're thinking, I know, let's do something about that. Maybe, don't know. So, since heavy cars damage roads more, they're going to change car tax, or vehicle excise duty, VED for short, to a weight-based system, maybe at some point. They are saying that no, they're not going to, but they probably will, because they've got to, because they're losing loads of money because of EVs. So this weight-based has obviously got to tackle EVs, because eventually it's only going to be EVs on the road. But the argument is heavy cars cause more damage to the road, they make more noise, they wear down tyres and brakes quicker, they're also more likely to kill people, and they take up more space. So we should, lost the camera, charge them more. So how are they going to implement it? Well, there's currently two main proposals. One is simply just weight based, and the heavier your car is, the more tax you're going to pay. And they say that have a limit, and this one is from the Transport and Environment think tank, and they say that we'll have a limit of 1,600 kilograms, maybe a bit more for EVs, like 2,000 kilograms, and every kilogram over 1,600 we're going to charge you a tenner. Now that might change, and they reckon that's fair and it's affordable, because everyone who has a big car is obviously rich. But is it just going to affect new cars, or will it affect the 10-year-old 7-seater that a family got because they've got 4 kids and otherwise they wouldn't be able to take them anywhere? And how much will it affect this 2010 L322 Range Rover that costs £4,200? Well, let's have a look. This has a curb weight of 2,700 kilograms. That is 1,100 kilograms over their limit. So £10 for every single kilogram, that's going to cost 11 grand. So can you imagine, I just bought a car for 4,200 and then you've got to pay an extra £11,000 to have it taxed. I mean, let us know, what do you think? Should people buying a car that is this heavy, and this L322 is ridiculously heavy, should they have to pay 11 grand a year for car tax? I'm not going to say whether they should or not, I'm just wondering, what do you think? But it does seem a hell of a lot, especially considering what we'd have to pay right now, which is £760 a year. If you take the L405 Range Rover, so the Range Rover that came after this, that's more like 2,000 kilograms, which is 400 kilograms over, so they'd have to pay an extra £4,000. Same with our Discovery Sport, that's about the same weight as an L405, so an extra £4,000 a year. The Discovery Sport, very good family car, 7-seater. However, something like a Qashqai, so an average kind of family car, they luckily only weigh 1,300, so they would be below the threshold and wouldn't have to pay any extra tax. I'm assuming it's extra tax, and there'll be a base already, because they're not going to let people get away with paying nothing. Same with the very spacious Citroen C4 Space Tourer, Grand Space Tourer, that's 7 seats. That is just about 1,600. So again, they'd get away with not having to pay any extra tax. So that's a good thing. Maybe then it is actually going after people in the super rich people buying those massive SUVs. By the way, our Nissan Leaf, which is an EV, is about 1,600 as well. That would also be free, or rather no extra tax. Oh, balls. Do let us know in the comments what you drive and how these weight proposals would affect you, or what you might buy in the future if they came into place. What do you reckon? I sort of feel like I could get on board if it was like the luxury car tax. The luxury car tax, by the way, if you don't know, is that any car that originally cost over £40,000 is subject to an extra £425 in car tax for the first 6 years after the car is bought, but not including the very first year. But basically it means those people who've got luxury cars, so they haven't bought it because they've got a big family, they've bought it because it's a luxury car, they have to pay more, assuming because they're obviously really rich, so they might as well. However, they don't have to pay for the first year, so super rich people who buy it the very first year, then get rid of it, they don't have to pay the extra tax. Also, people who lease the car when it's brand new, they won't have to pay the extra tax either. That's a bit weird, isn't it? There's something fishy going on there, isn't there? Luckily, we got away with it with our 8-year-old Discovery Sport. So yeah, if it worked like luxury car tax in that people buying a new car, if it's a really heavy car, then that's not too bad, because if you're buying a 100 grand car, you can probably afford an extra 10 grand. But it would be a damn shame for people who've, let's say they've bought an L322 or another oldish car with the intention of cleaning it all up and then either enjoying it as a nice kind of quasi future classic car, or reselling it so someone else can enjoy a working classic car. It's a shame for those people. If they've just bought one for 6 grand and for their troubles they've got to pay an extra £11,000, they're just not going to buy it, which means all these old cars, they're just going to die, basically. Maybe that's what they want. And some of these people, they're not even going to drive it that much. Well, there is another proposal that is actually based kind of on weight and on distance as well. It's more for EV cars, because in the future, if all the emissions are exactly the same, they've got to think about which cars are going to affect the environment more, and obviously it is going to be those heavy cars. Before we talk about that other proposal though, if you are enjoying yourself, do hit that like button, and if you're into L322 Range Rovers or used car talk in general, do hit that subscribe button. I'd love it if you stay around. It is mainly about L322 ownership though, so if you're not bothered about that, maybe don't subscribe just yet. But in the future, if this goes well, I would like to branch out into used cars in general, maybe do more challenges, possibly like always involving an L322 in some form or something from Land Rover. Got to stay true to my roots, haven't I? Anyway, back to the video. So this is the Malden-Leach conjecture. I know it sounds like an episode of The Big Bang Theory, but it's just two people who came up with an idea, and they suggest multiplying a car's weight by how far it's been driven, and that's the best way, they reckon, to measure environmental impact. Because obviously you might have a really, really heavy car, but if you don't drive it anywhere, it has zero environmental impact. So it seems quite safe, and they reckon it's going to stop the governments pushing tech onto you that they want you to use. So they think that something that's going to stop the government from doing something is going to get approved by the government. Clever. Having said that though, a per mile road tax would probably be quite a nice solution, because those kind of hobbyists, a lot of them are like those Sunday drivers, and they don't actually drive the car that much. Obviously, a lot of people would buy a car like this, the L322, and use it as a daily driver, so you'd be out there all the time, school run, shopping, whatever. But a lot of people who just want to maintain those classic cars wouldn't be driving them that much. And maybe it would encourage people who have a big car to try and use the small car for those little journeys, and only use the big car when they're going to go far away on holiday or something like that. But the question is, how much is going to cost? Well, they didn't suggest any like exact prices, but from the Resolution Foundation, which is another think tank, independent one, they suggest for EV cars in the future that lightweight EV cars, so under 1,000 kilograms, they'd be about 3p a mile, and then middleweight ones 6p a mile, and then heavy ones 2,800, which is incidentally about as heavy as this car, they would pay 9p a mile. Whether that would ever be implemented for ICE cars, I'm not really sure. It's more for electric cars, because in the future that's all there's going to be. So if I did 10,000 miles a year in this, and by the way, on my insurance I put 6,000 miles, but let's say an average person does about 10,000 miles, 9p a mile, that is only going to be £900 a year, which actually isn't that bad at all, because like I said earlier, this was 760. So that increase isn't that much. I could cope with that, especially when you consider Europe, because in Europe tax is absolutely like astronomical. It is ridiculous. I'm not going to defend this car too much. This is a gas guzzler. This does take up a ton of space in car parks on the road. It is more likely to hurt someone if you crash into them, so maybe it should get taxed more. But £900 I can live with. £11,000 I definitely couldn't. I'd have to sell the car. Now if it was in maintaining the car, now that's a different video. Now this video is not actually meant to be a rant about the government or Rachel Reeves or anyone like that. It's literally just for information, because when I first heard about it, I've got to say, for people who like cars like this, especially the first proposal, it is quite scary. And I wouldn't like to think that someone buying a car that's 10 to 15 years old or even more is going to have to pay such a crazy amount of tax. So it's more of a getting out there, giving you the information and asking, what do you guys think? So do let us know in the comments. And for anyone who's concerned, I'm never going to get political on this channel. I'm never going to try and push any agenda or party or anything like that. The whole government setup I find a bit weird anyway, where you've got people who know nothing about jobs doing jobs. For example, we had Gavin Williamson as the Secretary of Defence. Hey, how does that work? He didn't do military stuff, did he? So we've got some troops in a war zone, and it's like, should we pull them out, or should we let them risk their lives and stay and save some hostages or some civilians? I know, let's ask Gavin. So yeah, please let us know in the comments what you think of these proposals and how it would affect you. If you'd like to see more of this car, you can click here for how I bought it. I actually bought it from a farm. You can click over here to see how this crazy high mileage L322 did on its first road trip of 180 miles. That also features the next Range Rover, the L405. But if you got this far, then thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it or found it useful or informative, give us a thumbs up. If not, thanks for still being here, but give us a thumbs down and let us know in the comments how I can improve. And until next time, thanks for watching and drive safe.